It's time to get philosophical about what you can expect from working with an editor. Hi there, my name is Katie Morgan. I am an indie fantasy author and fiction editor, and welcome to Bardic Fool's Editing Advice for Writers, the series where I talk about the ins and outs of getting feedback on your work and give you a little bit of super secret insight into the editing world. I'm not sure if any of this is actually secret, but that sounds cool, so let's go with it. So today we're going to talk about editing philosophies, and I think this is really important because editing is about more than just whether or not the editor offers the service you want. You really want to get a feel for who they are as a person and how they approach the editing process. For example, if I were looking for an editor and I saw in the copy on their website that they offer brutal honesty, I would probably be running the other way. And if you're curious about why, I'll leave a link in the description to a previous video I did about why the phrase brutal honesty really sucks. So to give you an idea of how editing philosophies work, I'm going to go over the 5 elements of my personal editing philosophy. So let's roll. Philosophy element number 1, do no harm. So I believe my job as an editor is to facilitate the writing process. I'm here to help the writer make their writing the best it can possibly be. I always try to keep in mind this idea that the writer is sharing something really personal with me. You've probably heard that quote about how writing is bleeding on the page. Tangential fun fact about that quote, by the way, it's often attributed to Hemingway, but a lot of sources actually say that another American writer named Paul Gallico is the one who first said it. Anyhow, I think we've all heard stories about the horrible writing workshops where someone gave a writer feedback and it was really cruel and awful and the writer decided to give up writing forever. As an editor, that is definitely something that I am trying to avoid. I want the writer to come away excited about what they're working on and not just want to give up on writing. I believe the purpose of editing and the purpose of giving feedback is to help the writer achieve their full potential. You're not trying to make the person give up on writing entirely. So, first and foremost, do no harm. Philosophy element number 2, get the author excited. By the time I'm looking at a manuscript, an author has probably been poring over it for ages, maybe months, maybe years. They're probably burned out. All they see are the little issues. My job at this point is to come in with a fresh pair of eyes and give some more nuanced feedback about what's working and what isn't. My job is to show excitement and energize the writer for the next round of edits. Philosophy element number 3. Tell the truth. I am a professional editor, which means I am being paid to do a professional level job. And as part of that, I need to be telling writers the truth about their work. So while I think it's important to be talking about the positives here, I think you're not necessarily doing the writer any good by only talking about how perfect and wonderful their work is. You need to give them a place to start in terms of improving and learning and making this piece the best it can be. So no matter what the level of editing or feedback we're talking about here, I believe my job is to give my honest reaction, pointing out where there are issues so that the writer can address them and become better at their craft. So yes, point out the good stuff, everyone likes to hear that, but make sure you're also pointing out areas where they can improve. Philosophy element number 4, mind your tone. As an editor, I think it's really important to be professional and clear and polite. Basically, you want to consider what would it feel like to receive this feedback. This is where being both a writer and an editor, I think, has served me really well because I've been on the other side of receiving the feedback as well as giving feedback. And just to go back really quickly to that brutally honest thing, I think it is possible to be honest and effective in your feedback without being a jerk about it. Basically, I try to keep in mind that the writer is also a human being and proceed accordingly. Philosophy element number 5, set expectations and answer questions. As you might have noticed in my last video where I went through the different kinds of editing, there are a lot of kinds of editing, and so it's really important that the editor and the writer be on the same page in terms of what specific service they're offering and what that entails. You also want to agree on details like timelines, deadlines, and payment before the work begins. And personally, I always like to offer authors a chance to bring up some of their questions. A lot of times you kind of know as an author going into the editing process where your concerns or questions might be about your piece from your point of view. So as an editor, I think that's really good information for me to have so I know kind of where trouble spots might be. And of course, every project is different, so it's helpful again to have that author viewpoint on where they might like to focus their attention. So basically, if I'm setting expectations and answering questions up front, or at least knowing what questions to address as we move forward, then I make sure that there's a very good relationship between me and the author, and we can have a successful project together. So those are the 5 elements of my personal editing philosophy. Having in mind these philosophical ideas as you're looking for someone to work with to get feedback from is really important, because it's more than just do they do copy editing. You want to know kind of how are they going to approach the project, and does that fit with what you need and how you work. So that's it for this episode of Bardic Fools Editing Advice for Writers. I hope this was helpful. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up, and if you're curious to learn more about the writing and editing and creative process, please consider subscribing. If you think you might be interested in working with me, I will have more information about my editing services in the description below. Alternatively, if you're just looking for something good to read, might I suggest my contemporary fantasy novel, Dark Empathy? More info on that below as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.